Israel. I want you to take a look at what Obama's support for the Islamist radicals at the heart of the so-called Arab Spring has done to Israel. In May 2011, the president delivered 2 speeches on Israel, in which he called for Israel to restart negotiations with its Islamist enemies, starting with borders based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps. In other words, Israel, which Obama continually refers to as an occupying force, would give up large amounts of its territory while accepting borders that would prevent it from defending itself against the attacks from its sworn enemies just across its borders. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu proceeded to scold our schoolboy president in a speech to a joint session of Congress, saying, "Jerusalem will never again be divided. Jerusalem must remain the united capital of Israel." He received 29 standing ovations during his congressional address. One of the lines that received an ovation touched on something Obama seems unable to recognize. In a region where women are stoned, gays are hanged, Christians are persecuted, Israel stands out. It is different. After that, Obama and Netanyahu met in the Oval Office, where the Israeli Prime Minister made Obama look like a foolish schoolboy. Netanyahu explained that peace on the terms Obama had laid out will crash eventually on the rocks of Middle East reality. In the meantime, Israel's border with Egypt is no longer secure after Mubarak's ouster. In August 2011, a group of as many as 20 al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorists crossed over the Egyptian border into Israel, firing mortars, RPGs, and handguns at a bus and automobiles inside Israel, killing 7 Israelis. In the same month, demonstrators outside the Israeli embassy in Cairo carried signs with swastikas on them, shouting, "The gas chambers are ready." A month later, Egyptian protesters stormed the embassy, overwhelming security guards and forcing its evacuation. Iranian Defense Minister Ahmad Vahidi spoke for Iran's growing number of allies in the new Middle East when he said that, given the takeover of the Zionist regime's espionage den and the escape of the ambassador of this usurper regime from Egypt, we can say that the second wave of Islamic awakening against the Zionist regime has started, and we hope that his movement will continue with more power. At the same time, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas petitioned the United Nations to recognize a Palestinian state, while the Obama administration sidestepped the issue of Palestinian statehood in its response. It again criticized Israel's construction of settlements in areas that the Palestinians claim for their sovereign state. The Obama administration also failed to note that the Palestinian Authority chose the mother of 4 terrorist murderers, one of whom killed 7 Israelis, to lead the procession to the UN offices in Ramallah. She would be the one to hand over the letter to UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon. Iranian Revolutionary Guard official Masoud Jazari summed up the response to Israel's presence in this way: "The noose becomes tighter around the United States, the Zionist regime, and those who have infringed the rights of nations, and their allies will experience the same fate." Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and our oldest, most dependable ally in the region. So, in Obama world, that makes it one of our enemies. First, the U.S. State Department actually listed Israel as a state sponsor of terrorism. They quickly backtracked, calling it a mistake. Right. Of course, Obama has to be subtle in his opposition to Israel. An overwhelming number of Americans support the Jewish state. In her position as UN ambassador, Albright disciple Susan Rice finally got the chance to make it clear just how strong her and Obama's hatred of Israel is. After she was forced to veto a UN resolution declaring Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria illegal, she went on to throw Israel under the bus, explaining that the administration continues our opposition to continued settlements, that we reject in the strongest terms the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlement activity. Another Obama appointee, U.S. Ambassador to Belgium Howard Gutman, explained that we need to distinguish between legitimate anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews that is justified. In Gutman's warped view, traditional anti-Semitism on the part of Muslims is wrong and not to be tolerated. On the other hand, anti-Semitism resulting from Israel's treatment of Palestinians is just fine and should be encouraged. It didn't take long for the administration's anti-Semitic policies to surface right here in the U.S. I explained the anti-Semitic bias of the Occupy Wall Street demonstrators in Chapter 5. You don't think that Obama's support of the anti-Semites in the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations is an accident, do you? Did you think he was simply unaware of the anti-Semitic bias of these punks? What you're seeing emerge from the Occupy Wall Street idiots is Obama's new friends to enemies and enemies to friends policy. His treatment of Israel, shown in his refusal to denounce the anti-Semitism of the demonstrators, is just one more example of his insidious treatment of our former allies.